While coal is demonised by many from the left of politics and the Greens, there's an uncomfortable truth for them all. Coal remains vital in the steel-making process, and the only alternative, hydrogen, seems decades away. But right now, BHP has put to tender two of the best metallurgical coal mines in the world, Blackwater and Daunia, in Queensland, and it hopes it could bring $9 billion US. Among the shortlisted bidders, Coronado Energy, which continues to seek growth opportunities. Its recently appointed Chief Executive, Douglas Thompson, I spoke with him earlier.
Steel touches every part of our lives, and as a consequence, so does met coal. The two go hand in hand. And as we want to grow our economies and as we aspire and dream for change, steel finds its way into all of this change and into the future. Is it EVs, wind turbines and so on? It requires steel and consequently needs met coal. So that gives us a very solid base for a long-term future. And politicians and society will desperately need to see our contribution.
OK, so the reality is, though, politicians see your contribution. They also see a booming metallurgical coal price last year, and so the Queensland government hits you with extra royalties. The question is whether that gives you the incentive to be able to go out and find new mines while you've got this energy transition going on to really, if you like, take the chance that there is new deposits out there.
That's correct. The royalties obviously have impacted in all the projects that we'll look at in Queensland because we're going to compete for opportunities in the North Americas where we operate or in other states within Australia for where we will spend our investment dollars. The fortunate thing is dialogue has opened up with the government. We've engaged directly with the government. We continue to look at avenues in which we can work together to unlock these resources and fulfil the opportunities into the future.
OK, so is it better to try and find those opportunities through grassroots exploration? I mean, those areas in the Bowen Basin have been picked over for years and years. Or is it easier to go out and buy things like the Blackwater mine or the Daunia mine off BHP?
Our model is both, but yes, buying an asset that is fully permitted and is well understood already and has capital deployed that we can take advantage of and leverage, and we've got a proven track record of doing that in the past, is clearly a model we use. But for example, our project Mont Valley in the United States, that's a greenfields project that's going through permitting at the moment. So we've got the capability to do both in open cut and underground.
But given the fact that you've got capital, is it easier in Australia to create the mine from greenfields, or is it actually easier to get those permissions in the United States?
I wouldn't say it's easier or more difficult. It's different. There's different permitting in the United States. It's state by state, so you've got to consider the requirements state by state. Ideally, you stay out of the federal requirements, but permitting in both areas is understood, and businesses work through it in a mature way with government and ensure that we fulfil our obligations to be responsible custodians. But where we stand, and very fortunate, is we've got long-term, well-permitted, high-quality met coal assets.
That's the key. You're number 5 in the world right now. But like a lot of things, this is a scale game. Your business last year rejected a merger approach that came towards you. You chose to go in a different direction. Now you're seeking more size by being amongst the shortlisted bidders for those BHP assets. So it is a scale game after all, isn't it?
Correct. We've been a business that's grown over the last decade. And we continue to grow, looking at inorganic growth and organic growth. And we stand in a very fortunate situation that we've got a very strong and quite mature organic growth profile. Operations in the USA, our expansion projects there are well on program and maturing to deliver the production profile by 2025. We're looking to produce 7 million tonnes out of our operations in the US by then. And our operations here in Australia, we're looking to develop a new underground mine that'll take our production up to 13.5. So we've got the advantage of organic growth and solid plans, low capital, and then we've got these opportunities of inorganic growth. And we'll evaluate both for their merits.
OK, so then if I go to the federal budget, I know the federal budget had the coal price, the metallurgical coal price in this next year dropping from $342 a tonne to $140 a tonne, which might be a bit conservative, but right now it sits at $242 a tonne as we're speaking here. So the question is whether these lower prices, these falling prices, really change your view in regards to A, the price you pay for assets, or B, the willingness with which you've got to develop new assets.
Ross, definitely. Price plays into it. I think the fortunate thing is in the pricing model, we see an independent review that we use data from as well as showing that the long-term price, at the moment, we're going to see buoyancy above that. But then structural support for pricing long-term as well is supply and demand. As said earlier, met coal is a critical material. It finds its way into every part of our lives, and there's forecasted to be a supply shortage. And we think that's going to be exacerbated at the pace of change that society is looking to change its energy supply. So we see long-term structural support for pricing. Will pricing move around? Absolutely. We've seen it through the course of this year. I think in this quarter, in the near term, as China's results aren't as strong as what people predicted, and likewise with India going to their wet weather season, monsoon season, we'll see pricing come off in the near term. But in quarter 3 and quarter 4, we're going to see pricing return.
So just tell me about the chase for green steel and the chase for hydrogen to be incorporated into the steelmaking process. I said a decade, maybe decades away. Of course, the facilities to make that hydrogen, to create it, have got to be built. It's got to be proven, and then it's got to be cost effective. How far off is it in your opinion?
Ross, we see it much longer than your decade. The science is there, it can be proven in lab, but scaling it and actually making it economic, we see it much further out than your decade that you're predicting. And there's a couple of reasons behind that. It's not just the cost of bringing that technology to market and making it compete against traditional, but the fact that there's investment in blast furnaces right now, and that capital return has to be drawn upon. So we see a longer term out to 2050 and beyond, that blast furnace steel manufacturing will be a very, very large component.
I'll tell you, it's interesting, this whole story about this, but one thing you're saying is that metallurgical coal is here, potentially for decades into the future. Douglas Thompson, Chief Executive, recently appointed at Coronado Global Resources. Many thanks for your time today.